Ryan Schuiling on with you. Jazzy Jeff on the other side of the glass as we get things started on 6:30 KHOW. Today we go live to the state capitol. She's joined me before. She is the plaintiff in Garcia versus Colorado. You can follow her on X, formerly known as Twitter, at boomstickbabe. She's also got her own website. You can find her at Linktree there. Boomstickbabe is the handle she goes by there as well. Alicia Garcia, our guest from Denver. Alicia, thank you so much for stepping out and taking the time.
Hey, how's it going?
Doing all right, but give us an update. Last time we spoke about a week ago, you were set to testify before the State General Assembly. One, how did that go? And two, have you testified yet today?
I am actually sitting in a phone booth, the same phone booth as last time, waiting to testify in the Old State Library today in regards to 2 gun control bills that are on the hearing today. And then we have I think they're meeting right now in the Old Supreme Court in regards to the sensitive spaces bill as well. So there's a lot going on here about gun control in the Gold Dome. And when it comes to the assault weapons ban, I hate even using that term because it's such a propaganda term to even say. It was more like a semi-automatic ban that they have against we the people. However, that was quite an interesting day, and that testimony I'll be putting up on my YouTube so everybody could see, but it wasn't the nicest thing to say to people. Let's put it that way.
Now, your YouTube channel, is that the same, boomstickbabe?
It is. Everybody's been bugging me for quite some time to put more things on YouTube, put my testimony and my experiences. So I'm giving in and I'm doing it.
I like the name. The feminists aren't going to like it, but where did boomstickbabe come from?
Well, I'm feminine. I'm not a feminist. I don't believe men and women are equal. I think women are far superior to men. Just kidding. Just kidding. So it's kind of a nickname that I got when I was a kid. My dad used to, call me, there's my little babe with her boomstick, when we used to go shoot sporting clays and do things like that when I was just knee-high to a pig's eye in Trinidad, Colorado, and on my uncle and aunt's farm in Honey, Colorado. And it was just a name that kind of stuck. And when my father passed away, it was kind of an homage to him when I created my screen name. I was like, well, my dad can't be here, but his name for me can. So I just kind of tossed it out there, and it was, supposed to be an all fun, but it's now to the point that that's how everybody knows me. So that's kind of interesting. Alicia
Garcia is our guest. She's getting ready to testify and is in a booth. I guess it's kind of like when Clark Kent would go into the phone booth, come out as Superman. Is that what's happening here, Alicia? You go in, you're going to come out as Superwoman?
That's cool, though. I have the same kind of glasses, I'll tell you that. That's about it.
So are you in Clark Kent mode right now?
I think so, but I don't know if I ever get Supermaned up. But some will disagree with you.
Well, we'll see how the testimony goes, and if it is any indication, the interviews you've conducted here, you've been very knowledgeable on these subjects. I'm sure that you strike that kind of impression with those that you testify before, but I've been hearing, and I'm not sure if this was your experience, Alicia, I want to get to the bottom of it, though, that some people, by the time they got to testify, let's say a week ago when you were there were only like 2 representatives left. The Democrats had left. There were only 2 Republicans remaining, and it was just such a disrespectful showing there. Were you able to testify in front of like a full panel of members of the assembly?
Oh, I'd love to share that experience with you. Actually, what I've noticed, and I've been testifying here against gun control for the past 2 years against committees like this, and what I've noticed, especially the day of the assault weapons ban, is the 2 ban sponsors, Epps and Hernandez, they would ideally just show up when Moms Demand Action or people that they support were testifying. It was to the point where Epps is going to get up. She gets her cell phone. She takes photos and videos of them. She's wearing a red dress in solidarity of all the bloodshed they're promoting with gun control. And when it's time for us, and when I say us, I mean the pro-2A community, to address them as it is our civic duty and requirement, they seem to be absent. So it was a little bit disrespectful. Yeah. And I actually, when I came out of the Old State Library that day after my testimony, I addressed both Hernandez and Epps in the hallway and said, hey, you know what, I really don't appreciate the fact that I take time away from my family. There's tons of people that have to take time out of work, shut their business down. I have friends here that just had a new baby and they had to leave their wife and their new baby home. They have to close their gun shop for the day. There's women here that are literally throwing up in the bathroom because they're talking about abuse that they endured for the first time publicly in hopes to plead to these lawmakers that robbing them of their only comfort, their gun, that keeps them okay at night when they're not afraid that this person's going to hunt them down and hurt them. And they can't be more disrespectful than to hear the testimony of their constituents. So I find it quite egregious and quite shameful, as a matter of fact. And to be quite honest, I think that they do that on purpose because they know how they're going to vote. They don't really care. It's all for show. It's all for theatrics. They've made their mind up a long time ago that they have a complete disregard for the freedoms of this community, and they plan on seeing it through as best as they can.
Find her website, boomstickbabe.com. You can find it all there. That's the central hub, and she's going to put some things on YouTube in terms of content with her testimony today. Joining us live from the state capitol before her testimony is Alicia Garcia. She is the plaintiff in Garcia versus Colorado. She's a firearms instructor as well as an NRA range safety officer certified in that regard. Alicia, take us through once again for listeners that might be hearing you for the first time, just how you developed this interest, this passion for guns, and pursuing this knowledge of guns and getting certified as a range safety officer.
It came from the fact that I was experiencing such bias and misinformation when I myself was a consumer, starting to buy more guns, getting a little bit more in tune with the type of guns that I wanted, seeking training, all of that stuff. Being a woman in a very male-dominated industry and, a male-dominated sport, I was getting a lot of misinformation. I was getting a lot of sexualization, people talking to me like I was stupid. And it was to the point where it was like, well, either I can be part of the solution or I could be part of the problem, and I chose to be part of the solution. Being involved in guns and enjoying guns was always something that I spent doing with my father, since I was a little kid. We'd drive down to the Whittington Center in New Mexico. We'd go shooting. It was a day that I got to hang out with my dad. He worked 6 days a week, so on Sundays, we had to figure out fun and goofy ways that we can hang out and do fun things that I could do as a kid, because obviously I can't hang out in a bar all day with my dad. So we would go do things outdoors. My dad was a heavy hunter. He was a heavy fisherman. So that usually came with, if we're being outside and outdoors, my dad would be like, hey, I need to teach you how to use this gun just in case, there is a puma, there is a wolf, there is a bear, and how to behave in those scenarios. And it was just something that I took a liking to right away. And when my father passed away, it was like, well, I'm going to just keep this torch burning, and I'm going to keep fighting, and I'm going to keep shooting. And it was just like a domino effect. I kept discovering more things. I saw more problems. And then I said, you know what? This is something I'm passionate about, and I have a voice, and I'm going to use it. So that's how I got here.
And how you are there right now, ready to testify. And there are myriad bills here, the far left elements, the two that you described, Representative Elizabeth Epps and Representative Tim Hernandez, who I might add are members of Democratic Socialists of America. They're as far left as you can get in the United States. They are the authors and the driving force behind these gun bills. Much to my shock and dismay, a lot of so-called moderate Democrats are going along with this. We spoke yesterday with Ty Winter, who is the assistant minority leader in the House, that they've been able to craft some amendments to some of these bills, maybe to dovetail off some of the more severe Orwellian language, as you're talking about, Alicia, assault weapon. We'll define that. A lot of these people are doing so, having never held a gun, having never fired a gun, owned a gun, any of those things. Has there been progress on that front that satisfies you at all in terms of the amendments that they're trying to add to these bills?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
I realize that we have representatives like Ty Winters and Ryan Armagost. They're wonderful gentlemen that have their head wrapped around the true freedoms, and they're doing their best to uphold the Constitution. However, they're up against other people that are their peers that are doing everything they can to eradicate this freedom. And to me, every single law that's on the books that has to do with limiting somebody's access to the one tool in America that has stood for not only liberation and freedom, but for self-defense and being able to secure the blessings that were bestowed upon us by our forefathers, they're all transgressions against the Second Amendment, in my opinion. In my opinion, even being able to have to ask the state for permission for concealed carry is also an overstep and an overreach. I shouldn't have to ask somebody that, hey, is it okay by the state for me to be able to protect myself? and defend myself. We have, I believe, 28, almost 29 states right now in the United States of America that are, in fact, constitutional carry.
Yeah.
They're permitless carry. And then we have Colorado over here that's doing everything in their power for this blitzkrieg of gun control. And it's like a complete, dichotomy of good versus evil at this point.
You can follow her on X, formerly known as Twitter, at boomstickbabe. She joins us, Alicia Garcia, here on 630 KHOW, and she is at the state capitol getting prepared to testify. I have a feeling a lot of times, Alicia, you and I speak the same language, but like you said, there are two different silos here, and a lot of times people on opposite sides of this issue, we're just talking past each other. But when you get to the core of the issue, what you describe, which is so essential to the Second Amendment, that this is your great equalizer. You're a diminutive woman that in a hostile situation, you've got to have a way to level the playing field. And all these new gun laws are doing is creating more of an imbalance between a person like you and a would-be predator who would prey upon you. When you put it in those terms, do you get any kind of reaction from these pro-gun control Democrats?
The reaction that I get is quite appalling, to be quite honest. Senator Lorena Garcia, which I'm so sad that she has my family name, in her testimony, in her closing statement the other night in regards to gun control, stated that a man wanting a gun to protect or give to a woman to prevent her from being raped is the definition of toxic masculinity, and it is abhorrent to her. And it just blows my mind that our society has gotten to a point that somebody caring about the well-being of a fellow human being, regardless if it's male versus female or Republican versus Democrat, we have a right to live. We have a right for someone not to assault us or hurt us or vandalize our bodies, and to polarize it in such a sense that they're attacking us for wanting to be safe, and we're supposed to be indoctrinated to think that we should just let somebody rape us is something straight out of 1984 to me. Yeah. It's like, what are you talking about? This is a human right. This isn't even something that was given to us by the Constitution. This is a right adorned to us by being a human being. Every animal on the face of the planet has a right to survival. I just so happen to choose the firearm because it is the greatest equalizer that the face of the earth has ever seen.
Let me connect some dots that you laid out there. Alicia Garcia, our guest, she is the plaintiff in Garcia versus Colorado, fighting a lot of these overreaching gun right restrictions that are going to limit your Second Amendment rights. So taking the conversation one step further from Representative Garcia, who you quoted and you're not related to, except you have the same name, so I'll make that very clear. But what is their remedy then? Let's paint the scenario. Let's go ahead. I'm going to be very blunt, very direct, and very graphic. They disarm you, and then a would-be predator criminal is going to attempt to rape you. What do they advise that you do in that instance then, now that you're not armed and you're not able to protect and defend yourself?
To me, I think that what they think is their rationale is somebody who commits rape and goes to court, they don't get the death penalty. That is their response to me. In my suggestion, and some people believe, this is a quote-unquote far-right ideology, is a dead rapist doesn't continue to rape. Mm-hmm. And that I don't pick up a gun every day of my life and put it on my appendix in hopes to hurt anybody. I put a gun there to defend, to neutralize threats, to stand for safety. I'm here to defend life. I'm always going to be reactive to violence. I'm never going to be a proactive person to violence. And their perspective is that, no guns. If there's no guns present, that means no violence. Well, people have been dying with hands and fists since the dawn of time. They're not wanting to put a ban on screwdrivers and hammers and bats because people die from blunt force trauma or stabbings. This is a direct attack on the Second Amendment because they know that it is the most effective tool. They know this is a tool that has always stood for freedom, and it is a representative of not only freedom in the sense that we're able to hunt and provide for our families, but taking it back to the 1800s, that it was literally the tool that was kept purposely from people of color, from minorities, from slaves, from mestizos, from the indigenous people of this earth, so that the threat of violence could be used to keep them in line, because they didn't want these freed slaves to be able to do what they wanted to do, or to start their own families, or be able to resist. The threat of violence is what they had in order to control. And that threat of violence is still the tool that they're using just for them and not for us. I want to be very clear about that. The government is not anti-gun. Mm-hmm. They are very, very pro-gun, but for their protection and not for ours.
Perfectly stated. The hypocrisy abounds. Alicia Garcia, guns right activist, joining us live from the state capitol in Denver, where she is preparing to testify. Let me try to get something straight, because I'm a very logical guy, Alicia, and that is, this Representative Garcia is telling you that a man who wants to help you protect yourself by arming you, that's toxic masculinity. But on the same hand, she is saying, these Democrats are saying, that, wait, rape is not a capital crime. We don't sentence rapists to death. Isn't that misogynist?
I think that they pick and choose the narrative that suits them. And this is a design. I want people to really be aware that this is a design of how they manipulate the minds of the people. They know when to be a victim. They know when to be the savior. So they have been taught and groomed to say all the right things to appeal to all of your human sensitivities, to be like, well, what about this person? They can be rehabbed. Think about all of the lives that could be saved, the children, because rape is just the beginning of violent behavior. Right? We don't know how many times that rapist has raped before, or what is going to escalate in their deviant addiction that they have, because it's not an act of sex. It's an act of control. It's an act of violence that they thrive on. And that continues and that continues. Somebody who is a rapist is most likely to offend in another violent way. And then what happens when that woman is murdered, or the victim is a child? Where do we draw the line that my safety is important? And if we ourselves are our first responders, and we ourselves are standing up against violent criminals, imagine how less likely they would be to offend, knowing that their potential prey is armed. When we talk about behaviors of criminals, the one thing that all criminals want, and this is from the words of criminals themselves, I've watched countless videos and studies and read evidence of why criminals do what they do, and the characteristics of victims that they look for. They want somebody who is aloof, who has no situational awareness, who is their head in their phone, completely unaware of what's going on, somebody who carries themselves with a little bit of timidness, not very much confidence, because somebody who knows that they're armed, and somebody who is practiced and diligent in that type of discipline, we have our heads on a swivel. We know who we are. We use our voice. We look at people when we're speaking to them. We have an air of confidence about us because we know that we are in control. And when somebody who is looking to make a prey out of someone, whether it's a rapist or a robber, anybody who would want to commit crime, they want somebody who is defenseless. And those are characteristics that also these politicians use to bring those types of people in that are victims, that are begging for the state to help them. I've heard countless testimony of people saying, it is your responsibility, my government, to take care of me. Yeah. They have literally bred the youth to be, they have Stockholm syndrome at this point, begging their captors for their safety. Alicia
Garcia. Follow her at boomstickbabe. That's her website, too. You can follow her on X and online, boomstickbabe.com. Alicia, thank you, and good luck today.